Horror is one of the most popular movie genres of all time. These flicks give people nightmares, fear of the dark, and some memories they can't forget, no matter how hard they try. Today, we plunge ourselves into darkness and revisit the town of Haddonfield in the classic 1978 Halloween. Get into the mind of Jordan Peele in Get Out 2017 and call upon the once evil home spirit, Beetlejuice.
Beans? Bings.
Welcome back to the Halloween special episode. We are joined in the studio today by the amazing and spellbinding conversationalist, Chloe.
Hello.
Welcome,
Thank
Chloe.
you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we are super excited to have you in the studio.
I'm so excited to be here. You don't even understand.
That's very good.
That's good.
And can you give us a quick introduction about yourself, what movies mean to you, and what do you feel about the horror genre in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi, for those watching, I'm Chloe. And for what movies mean to me, is that what you were saying? I just freaking love movies. I wouldn't describe myself as a movie buff because I feel like that's too much pressure.
Yeah.
But I love talking about movies. I love talking about pop culture. I just... sometimes I would do a movie marathon of like 4 movies in one day.
Oh, wow. That's very impressive.
Yeah. I just love film and cinema, and even the fluffy movies as well that you go to and have a good time. And I love being in the movies as well. It's like such a nice thing to do with your friends, and it brings me back to, growing up, and you remember when the Harry Potter films came out and everyone would like make sure they were at the midnight session, and it's just I think it really brings people together. Mm-hmm. And then what does horror mean for me? I personally am a bit of a scaredy cat.
Yep.
So I like the spooky genre. I'm a spooky gal, but when it comes to horror films and scary movies, I get possessed by, I think, a demon every 3 months or so. And they're like, you should watch a scary movie. You should scare yourself. So I do dabble in the scary films, but I don't enjoy the lead up to it.
Yeah. No, I can share the sentiments. Like, both of us are not fans of the horror genre either, but I think this episode gave us the excuse to watch like these horror movies to keep up with the time. What about you, Tim? What is your sentiment with the horror genre?
The same. Like, I was also a scaredy cat, never wanted to watch it.
Three scaredy cats in the studio talking about horror movies.
Because I still remember watching Alien the first time, and when the chest burster come out, I'm like, I'm never watching a movie ever again. This is horrifying. Is this going to happen to me now? This is real.
Yeah.
And then I think it was like the last 5-6 years where I'm like, enjoyed watching them more than being like, I'm too scared to watch these now. Because that's like, I actually do enjoy them most of the time. Okay. Sometimes they, get a bit generic and jump scary, but I think they've got their place in movies.
So Alien was your first horror movie?
I'd probably say so.
What about you, Chloe? What was your first horror movie?
Oh, my first horror movie was a really funny story, actually. So I was quite young, and I remember there were big posters and ads up for, do you remember that parody film Scary Movie?
Yeah.
And so I really, really wanted to see it. And so I was in the backseat of my auntie's car, and I said, hey, can we watch Scary Movie tonight? And she was like, yeah, absolutely. And I thought, wow, she usually says no to my requests. And then we end up going into Blockbuster. Oh my God, I feel so old. But we went to Blockbuster that night, and she rented a movie, and I was like, that's weird. Isn't it in the cinema? And we came home, and she put on Candyman.
Wanna know about Ruthie Jean? They ain't never gonna catch him. Who? Candyman.
Oh, wow.
I'm not sure if you watched it, but it made me terrified of bees until now, until my whole life.
So did you end up watching Candyman again, like now, or?
No, but there was a Jordan Peele remake of it recently, and it's been on my list, but I think the trauma from my childhood has stopped me from watching it.
And there is a remake of the Alien movie as well.
Well, not really a remake, but like another Alien movie, Covenant, but I thought it was good.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but I guess we can discuss about that in the next episode.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see how we go.
My first horror movie was Friday the 13th, and I watched it accidentally. So I was on my way home from school. I was having a good time that day. I came home. I were, and then I came home, and my dad was watching it, and I thought, oh, this is a movie, and he purposely asked me to come sit down next to him. Oh, just come and watch a movie with me, and of course, in that movie, Jason went around massacring people, and yes, I got the trauma from that as well. I think I couldn't sleep with the lights on for like 2 years after that. God. And every time I go somewhere, I always had to look around.
He's coming.
He's coming. Yeah.
Kids these days get bluey. We got horror films.
Yeah, we got horror films. I mean, like now when I watch Friday the 13th again, it's just a bit goofy.
Yeah. All the old horror movies are a bit goofy, but when you're young, you're like, because it all feels real, right? When you're watching it, like now you get it, you understand it a bit more. But
I think that you have to give credit to the movie makers back then because they use all the special effects,
or even like lack of, right? Like, there's no CG like they have now, so like it's all physical, or even like the makeup. I'm sure we'll get into some of these when we talk about these movies, but the makeup and stuff's always great.
That's why Jurassic Park stays like quite watchable now, because a lot of it is puppetry and a lot of the FX was quite physical rather than just relying on digital technology, which can age, you know?
It can age, exactly.
So when you watch a horror movie now and you notice a lot of the CGI, does it affect your experience when you watch a horror movie?
Depends how well done it is most of the time, because if it's just like blatant big creature, like all right, whatever, but if it's done well, like if they use shadowing well and in the darkness and not blatantly, like if it's all the time as a big creature, you like get, like we've talked about this in other like monster movies, it gets a bit boring, right?
Yeah, and I think in another episode we were discussing Longlegs.
Yeah,
like in that movie we had zero CGI.
I don't think so. I can't remember any of it.
It was scary as fuck.
You've repressed the memory.
So I think it's now time for us to visit an old friend, Mr. Michael Myers.
Michael Myers, oh god,
not the one from Shrek, but from the classic Halloween episode.
You mean what else was he in? I feel like Mike Myers has been in so many films.
Austin Powers. Yeah.
Good old Austin Powers.
He's as scary in Austin Powers as in Halloween 1978. But yeah, so this movie starring Jamie Lee Curtis in her debut movie.
I was going to say, this is her first movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What was your first impression of this movie?
Do you want to go first, Tim?
I thought it was interesting. Like, it's so hard to watch a movie that's nearly like 40, 50 years old, horror movie. I think it has like its moments, but it doesn't scare me as much as maybe it would have even like 5 or 6 years ago when I would have watched this and been like, oh no, some crazy dudes chase me around and just gonna murder me.
What really surprised me was how tense it was. It wasn't like the pace of horror slasher films now.
There's a lot of long shots. There's a lot of shots of them just like walking down the street or sitting in a room. It doesn't like jump cut. It just like stays in the moment. And it's always weird that he's just standing there. He's just like, my mate, are you lost?
And I think like I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with long shots. I love them, but in a horror movies, I can hate them.
I think it makes sense in this film because it's meant to make you feel like you're being watched, right, by Michael the whole time. Even it has those stupid shots where it's just like standing there blank face, like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and I must say, like this movie, I didn't realize how big this movie was, but it became financially and culturally success. The movie was made on a $325,000 budget.
That's
and
crazy.
It generated $70 million.
Damn.
So it's 215 times the budget.
So it was an indie film of its time?
Yeah, it was an indie film.
Because it's like almost like Paranormal, right? That's a similar thing. It had a really low budget but made huge money.
Yeah.
I guess that explains why they've made so many damn Halloween movies.
Yep. So now they got like 5 sequels already, and I think they're going to release another one.
I know there was one recently when Jamie Lee Curtis came back.
Yeah.
I never watched it.
Yeah. I think she was like, I came back to fulfill my destiny to kill Michael Myers.
I actually was really surprised to learn that it was her debut film, and I went into a spiral on the interwebs, and I think she was cast because her mother was in Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho.
Yeah.
I mean, Nepo baby, but still, she was really good in it.
No, she was very good in it, especially because I don't know how she would have been a teenager, right? That's like the premise of the whole film.
Yeah.
But no, she does a pretty good job.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm pretty sure you would be scared as well if you stand next to the guy who plays Michael Myers.
Big dude in a weird mask.
In terms of costume, his costume is one of the most popular one because it's very easy to replicate. It's just like a mechanic tracksuit and just a mask. Yeah,
because that's even funny in the film when he like gets the suit, he just like kills the guy and he's like, "This is what I'm wearing now."
Where did he get the mask from, though?
Did he get it back in the film? I'm trying to remember now.
Yeah, I don't know where he got the mask from, but then this spawned a lot of analysis and investigation from the fans, and they came up with all these crazy theories like, oh, he's one of the, he might get the mask from one of the manufacturers, and then he wanted to test out the mask. And yeah, no, I really wanted to discuss these theories, but there are so many of them.
Oh my god, because I didn't even think about it. I'm just like, I thought he just wore it all the time.
But that character was played by two different actors, the guy who plays the Shape and then the guy who plays the guy with the mask off. So why don't we talk about the things that you don't like about this movie now that you watch it a few times?
I wouldn't say there was too much I didn't like. It just feels goofy, like looking back at it now, more than like it being bad. Because like you said, such a low budget as well. I think they do a great job. Like, I really did enjoy the lingering shots because it really like, oh, you are feeling like you're being watched. You do feel like there's someone there. Because every time Jamie Lee Curtis is like, oh, there's a guy there. And then her friend's like, oh, really? And she like goes over like, oh, he's gone. He's not even there. And I'm like, I wouldn't even know what I didn't enjoy a lot. Because I even like the doctor character as well. Like he's like chasing him down the whole time.
Yeah.
And then I love when they're in the house, they go back to like the house and he like rips out the gun and then he's like, oh, don't worry, police officer. I've got my license. And the police guy's like, whatever.
It was the 70s. It was a different time.
They're just like, everyone can have guns.
Yeah.
I'm trying to even think. There's nothing that comes to mind immediately.
Yeah, I think it's very hard for us to find something that we don't like about this movie because apparently it's been considered one of the best horror movies ever made. And there are a lot of like YouTube videos and research papers about this movie and where it draws the inspiration from and things like that.
Because I think it does do a good job, right? But it's just like, it's always hard to look at a film and just be like, what's bad about it? Especially when it's so, it's not new or anything really. Like, I'm sure a lot of people have like delved into it. Yeah. There's nothing on the top of my head.
Yeah, as a modern audience watching a film from 1979, it's really hard not to be like, oh, that's cliche, but that's where the cliche came from. So I think you have to kind of transport your mind back to if I was watching this in 1979, and it really makes sense looking at the films that came out in the 80s and, Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th and all of those franchises, because Halloween really set the tone before the, on the cusp of the 80s. So it's really cool. I just love that opening credits shot, and I miss opening credits. But that opening credits of just zooming closer and closer into that Halloween pumpkin. Yeah. I was like, whoa, this is moody. It feels like a film, not like a slasher movie that we would see kind of on a Tuesday watching and whatever's cheap at the cinema.
So what do you think about the character of Michael Myers? Like, can you guys see any other traits in the current horror movies that are from him?
Well, he doesn't really have any traits, right? It literally just sets him up as like some kid that killed his sister one night, right? And then he's just like, oh, well, there we go. And then it's like, I guess he's crazy. Yeah. Because it doesn't explain it really. He's just like a crazy dude, right? And he gets out and the doctor's like, he's got this plan. And I'm like, does he? Does he have this plan? Because it was funny because I watched this and I saw they had like a remake or even like a prequel to like explain him. And I watched a bit of that. I couldn't watch it. It was terrible. They're like explaining why he's like this. I'm like, kind of ruins it. Yeah. Because it's nice not to know, especially because when she like stabs him the first time and he like just gets up. Yeah. And you're like, oh shit, what the hell's going on here? Yeah. What were they feeding him in prison or psych prison? I was like, god damn.
No, that's one of the things that I found very similar to the character of Longlegs. Because in that movie, we didn't know much about that character and we learned it through the movie and I think the aspects of mystery helped the character very much. But we discussed this before as well about the exposition in the movies that people tell you how to feel, what to think. I think it ruins the movie a lot
because there wasn't much in this at all, right? It was literally that first scene and then even the doctor going to the hospital when they're dropping him off and he's like, oh, we've got to make sure this goes well because if it goes bad then you're like, oh, okay, it is gonna, it's going bad.
But he doesn't say much in this movie
like
as well.
He doesn't he doesn't set up much. He doesn't like say he's a psycho or anything. He's just like, we got to keep him under wraps because he's dangerous. That's kind of like it. Yeah. Which is good, right? The mystery really helps it.
Do you think you guys could escape from Michael Myers? No. I don't think he ran once in that film.
I guess you could run away, right? He is very slow, but he don't die.
He doesn't die.
So basically, he's where Jason got the power from. Like, Jason doesn't die either. Like if you shoot him, if you hit him with a car, he always comes back.
That's part of the horror, right? You can't stop them. That's like the idea, right?
Yeah.
But that's why this is good, because this is like the first one, right? The first idea of like, oh, I finally stopped him. No, I didn't. He just stands back up.
Yeah.
Starts slowly walking towards you again.
And what is his weapon of choice? It's a kitchen knife, isn't it?
It is the kitchen knife, but I feel like he nearly chokes people out more than anything.
Actually. And I was like, this seems kind of, and forgive me, but I know I'm new, but it seems kind of sexual.
Yeah, it's a bit weird.
And I'm like, is this just because he went through puberty in an asylum?
Because it's like, because even like he sets up the mural. Like he puts like, is it his mother's gravestone or whatever? Or
his sister's gravestone.
And then he puts one of the girls there and then he just hides the other in the cupboard. Just like, and they're just like lying in the cupboard.
Yeah.
Because he literally stabs some guy into the like, I don't know if it was a cupboard and he just stays there. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, I was like, what brand is this?
Yeah, I know, good knife.
And I wanted to discuss this point before, like what do you think makes people so into these sorts of movies? Because there are some theories online that because these movies contain a lot of human hidden desires, like sex, like lust, and also a bit of sadistic desire as well. It seems like people enjoy watching pain on the screen.
It's like a bit of the shock value, right? Because like, I think of it now, even as a young kid, it was like, oh, you're watching a horror movie, there's going to be like nudity in it, which is more like, I feel like sometimes, you know, it isn't used for like the shock value. It is used because like, oh, look, there's some boobies there. Come on, go watch the movie. Yeah. Where I feel like in this, it's just like teenagers mucking around, right? And then he's just like walks in and like buggers it up. Because I do like that scene when he walks in with the sheet over his head.
That was funny.
Why aren't you talking to me? She's got like the glasses on. And he's just like, oh, whatever, I'm going to go kill you now. And like walks over to her. Oh my God. But I don't know, like I think it is a part of that. Because like we're talking about Alien and that's like a bit of like sexual stuff that's like very awkward, the way like the face hugger like grabs onto your face and stuff, a lot of awkward sexual things you don't want to deal with or see. So that's like a part of it, not so much in like Halloween, but it does delve into a little bit, I feel.
Yeah.
I have a question to your question.
Okay.
But why do we feel like it's always the sexually promiscuous that die in these films?
Well, that's like another thing about like if we want to get into like, you know, misogyny and stuff. It's just like, she sleeps around, she deserved to die. But it's just like, come on, mate.
Yeah.
But I think like based on the context of Halloween, if we remember, if we talk about like the first scene where he saw his sister, right? So I think it caused him some trauma. I think in the context of this movie, it kind of makes sense. Like, oh, you know,
like it seems like that's what he's going for, right?
Yeah.
But like the first person he kills, like she was just getting into the car, right? And trying to drive away. Like she wasn't in the act per se like the other couple were, right? So it's like kind of maybe what triggered him, but it's not really like his thing, I guess.
Yeah. And people were saying like probably because she looks like his sister.
Like it could be that as well, right?
Yeah.
But I'm sure the boyfriend that he murdered didn't look like him, did she?
So what is your theory on this, Chloe?
I think Michael Myers is supposed to personify just evil people doing evil stuff in this film and in the context of the world, right? Like, I think with Halloween, what's really interesting is it was kind of one of the first movies to contextualize the horror genre in suburbia. And so I think he's a representation of like evil can be anywhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't die.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. Yeah, like it doesn't die.
Do you think it's correct to assume that he's also a representation of punishment in terms of religion? Like, you know, you're talking about like people having sex before marriage, for example, and he's like the punishment.
I don't see it too much because, like we said, like he only catches one of them in the act, really. And when he goes after the main character, like she hasn't done anything.
Yeah.
And even when he first like spots her, which is great when he's like following along in the car, and she like keeps her like, "What's this going on?" It like that wasn't. It was literally just because he went to his house right at the beginning, and she like puts in the thing for her dad or whatever, and just sees it and like targets her, right?
Yeah.
It isn't. I don't think there's any like punishment because out of the friends, she's like the normal one. She's just like studying at school, doesn't have a boyfriend,
and that's why she survived.
Well, she did stab him like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah,
I don't think that's why she survived. She's the main character, but I don't think like I kind of see what you're saying, but I didn't see much like religious messaging of like these people have done bad things, they die now.
Yeah.
I was also so impressed by her aim using the coat hanger to poke him in the eye.
Yeah, I remember that. Like, she got it undone really quick as well. I'm like, damn. She deserved to get away after that.
Yeah.
And I think before we wrap up this movie, do you think that this franchise deserves the recognition that it gets now? Like I think it becomes worse and worse over time.
Well, that's what I mean, because you keep milking it and the mystery goes when you keep telling the same story, right?
Yeah.
I do think this movie still holds like a special place in like horror. Like I don't think, like Chloe was saying earlier, it does really start a lot of things in a lot of other horror movies, and I do think it does it well. But that's what I mean. Like when you keep trying to recreate it, it can hurt a film. But I do think this will kind of stay apart. And I'm probably glad I haven't watched too many of the other sequels.
Yeah.
I don't know if I will.
So I think eventually Michael Myers, Jason, and Freddy will be
They got together?
Yeah, they got together.
At a tea party?
They'll have a podcast.
Oh, I would love to hear that podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you watch the latest Spider-Man movie? How'd you feel about it? And then Michael's just standing there in the corner.
And to use the danger in the suburban area as a segue, we're going to get into the next movie, directed, written, and produced by Jordan Peele in 2017. Get Out, starring Daniel Kalunga as Chris and Alison Williams as Rose Armitage. Okay, so this movie was made on a $4.5 million budget, and then it came to get the box office of $265.4 million. So 57 times the budget, which is pretty good.
Did you just do that quick maths?
No,
Did you write it down?
No, I had to write it down. So first impression of the movie. First impression.
I thought it was amazing. Like, it's a crazy, like, going from some of those, like, Beetlejuice and, like, Halloween to this, where it's, like, completely different films. Like, the idea of, like, there's no, like, you kind of don't know what's going on through the whole film, and you're always, like, double guessing and, like, figuring out what the hell's actually happening, but I thought it was amazing. I think it still stands up as one of his best movies.
Yeah.
I love anything that Jordan Peele does, and I think this was his first horror film.
Yeah.
And I find it really funny because he's a comedian by trade, right? Before these films.
Yeah.
And when I thought about it deeply, I was thinking actually comedy and horror have a lot in common in that it's all about build up and tension, and then how you release that tension in a really surprising or different way. And Get Out was just such a masterclass in tension, right? Like you didn't know what was going on. Like, why was that guy running at pace
That's
directly to the character?
What's going on?
And like when my first impression of the movie was completely similar to yours as well, because I knew of Jordan Peele in Key and Peele, the comedy sketches, and when I saw his name under a horror movie, I was like, why are you doing this? And for a split moment, I thought this would be a disaster because he's not doing what he's good at. But then when I watched the movie, I was like, wow, this is very good. Very good. Why don't we talk about the inspiration? So this movie drew the inspiration from the 1975 Stepford Wives. I'm not sure if you guys have seen this movie.
I know. I don't know if I've ever seen it.
Like all the wives in this town got replaced by androids.
Yeah.
And they became this perfect wives, and apparently all the original wives got replaced. So as you can see, like, you know, the idea is like someone else is taking over your body and you're doing the things that you're not supposed to do. Why don't we talk about the performance of the villains?
The villains?
Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of them, really.
Yeah, the antagonists.
A whole family of them, in fact.
The Armitage families. Do you have a favorite antagonist?
I don't know. They're all... I guess it's got to be like the girl Rose who he dates, because it's just like... It's kind of crazy when he like figures it all out and he looks into the box and it's got all the photos in there and it's like, oh my God, how many were there?
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to figure out. I'm like, how old is she? She's like in her late 20s and she's like dated like 10 blokes and like dragged them all here to get not chopped up, but switched over.
Yeah, yep.
And I'm like, oh my God.
I love that scene where she's sitting on her bed and she's eating the cereal from separately to
from the milk.
Yeah.
That's what really did it. All the killing's fine.
That was when it set me off. I was like, she's a psychopath.
Can't just put your milk in the bowl. Come on now.
Yeah, I think Rose is Jordan Peele's favorite antagonist of the movie as well. But do you think that this movie creates the tension? Well, not the tension, but like the distraction to the audience good, like well enough? Because in the beginning, I could tell that something is wrong between Rose and Chris.
The point. Like, you know something's wrong because when you meet like the housekeeper and the groundskeeper, they're clearly something a bit off with them. That's kind of like your first message until like I think the parties are like the big giveaway, right? And even the brother, when he's like talking to him about like how good he is racially and like how strong he is and stuff, I'm like, initially like, oh, this is just a weird ass white dude that's just like, okay, this is a black dude, he's gonna like give him shit and stuff. But that's what I mean. It just feels like awkwardness or more being like, you know, ignorant to the whole thing. Because even like they talk about like how the dad says, oh, like I voted for Obama, right? And well, doesn't mean you're not racist. Like just because you voted for a black guy.
Yeah.
But it kind of, because that's what it feels like. You're like, okay, it's just like a weird racist family or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that's what's like puts a bit of a curtain on what's actually happened when we get to the party and like they're all asking weird questions, right?
Yeah.
The lady's like feeling him.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, you know Tiger? It's like, yeah, I know Tiger. He's like, oh, you know, he's a great golfer. He's like, there's like all these weird questions he gets asked, and it's like, oh, what's this?
Yeah.
It's really cool because I think what it does really well is it takes kind of the sphere of, you know, racial relations in America and then turns it into a horror film because so many people of color would have in some, you know, forum or in some social experience have experienced kind of those microaggressions or those weird things happen to them in their real life context. And this film, I think, gets that experience and then turns it into your deepest, darkest nightmare.
Yeah, because it's like, what is the worst thing that could literally happen? It's like they're actually stealing us. Yeah, literally.
And it's funny that Chris's friend distracted the audience with his theory. Yeah, you're gonna be turned into a sex slave.
I don't know if you know this. White people love making people sex slaves and shit.
Well, that's what I love the friend because he's like, you shouldn't. He literally at the start of the movie was like, oh, you shouldn't go to some crazy white lady's family, and it's like, well, not much foreboding there, but that's what's great at the end when he saves him. He's like, I told ya.
One of the details that I really like about this movie is when they got stopped by the police. So I watched one of Jordan Peele's interviews, and he was discussing the details of the Rose character. So that scene in the beginning, I thought that she was just protecting her boyfriend from racism. Yeah. Like, but the idea here is like she didn't want to have any paper trace of him going to the house.
That's the thing. It doesn't come back to that where it's like there's no evidence of him going there, right? So they can, you know, deny it.
I love that scene where he's like, get the keys from, and she's searching her bag. She's like, I can't find it. And then, you know, the twist. And it's just like the best character transition and like revealing of a twist almost, and just really seeing how duplicitous her character was from the beginning. It was just a really great scene. And because, you know, you always think about if you were in these scary movies and you're like, could you get your key out in time to unlock the door and then lock it behind you, you know? And it was like, oh my God, she's searching for a key. She's in it.
It's playing on that as well, right? Even though like at this point, he even knows that she's like not trying to help him.
Yeah.
Because he's seen it all and he's just like hoping that maybe she's like not in on it, but he knows. So it's kind of like a daunting realization. It's like it's going to bloody happen and I can't really stop it.
And I think that twist is a bit of reverse into all the horror twist, right? Usually the twist comes when something big happens, some sort of like loud noises or big actions. But like the small actions in Get Out gives you like that feeling of like, oh crap, like I have been cheated this whole movie and now this villain really came out.
Yeah, because it builds up to it, right? It isn't about like a giant monster or a giant like, you know, ghost. It is literally the realization I can't get out. I'm done.
Yeah.
Like all the shit they've done to me is like worked.
Yeah.
Because like the whole mother like hypnotizing him the whole time and he like had no chance from the beginning essentially.
Oh my God, that hypnotist scene where he falls in. I think about it all the time.
Yeah. That's a great scene.
Yeah.
Like, what do they call it? I can't even remember.
The sunken place.
The sunken place, which makes it sound even worse.
Yeah.
Because that's like great because it hints at it a bit when they're having tea for the first. I don't know what they're drinking and she's like messing with the spoon and like meddles with him a bit. He's like unsure about what's going on. But then like, because that scene's haunting when she's like asking about what happened with his mother and he's like sitting on the chair like not wanting to tell her the story but can't help it and have to tell it. It's like horrible. I was like, oh my God.
And that teacup, the sound. the horror genre has for it is sound is always used so well.
Well, yeah, it has to, right?
Or the lack of it.
The silence can always play well.
And I was going to ask about like the actual concepts of sunken place, because Jordan Peele came up with that idea, and I think he was just having this epiphany one day, and then when he wrote that scene, he started crying because of the pain that he's putting the character through. And it really makes sense to us as an audience when you are in this state of hypnosis and you got into this sunken place where you can see yourself doing all these actions, but you can't really control yourself.
Yeah.
It's very similar to the concept of when you are awake but your body is still asleep.
Sleep paralysis.
Yeah. So have you ever had that happen to you?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, honey baby, darling. I get sleep paralysis all the time.
Do you remember those experiences?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think the scariest part is the wanting to scream and the wanting to move your body and get out of your body, but you can't, and there's nothing coming out. And the sleep paralysis is also paired with paralysis demons. So you're dreaming, and I think the worst one I had was I was being, haunted by a demon, and then I couldn't move my body, and then I woke up, and then I was like, oh, I'm safe. And then the demon came back, and I was still not able to move my body, but I had woken up in my pajamas in my bed, like exactly where I was.
Oh wow!
And yeah, it was the scariest thing. Do not wish upon anyone. Go to a sleep doctor, everyone.
Have you ever had that happen to you, Tim?
Nothing like that, but I've had bad nightmares and like waking up and think I see something.
Yeah.
And just like freak out.
Yeah.
But because I remember I used to have really bad nightmares as a kid.
Do you remember any of those nightmares?
Some of them. Probably nothing I want to really delve into too deeply.
Yeah.
But just stuff that just like freaks you the hell out and you're like, want to get up and like, because that's the thing, half the time you get up, I'm like, oh shit. Because I always feel like going back to sleep and continuing the nightmare.
Yeah.
Because I hate that as well. Like having like a couple of nightmares in a night.
Have either of you guys seen Behind Her Eyes, the miniseries?
No.
Oh my God, it's so good. But I won't give away too much, but there's basically a plot line where the main characters get sleep paralysis and sleep demons and whatnot, nightmares, really bad nightmares, night terrors, I think. And they kind of train themselves to count their fingers so that when they're having a night terror, they count their fingers and they realize they've got 15 fingers and they're like, oh, I'm dreaming. And then it just turns into a lucid dream. And after I watched that miniseries, it actually happened to me.
Oh, God. Damn.
I had a night terror and then I looked at my hand and my hand was just like blurry. Couldn't count the fingers.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm dreaming. And then I just had an excellent dream after that.
So like when you were in the lucid dream, like, did you control your dream to turn into something that you really wanted?
Yeah, I was just like, you're not real.
Yeah, I'm balling. I have had one nightmare that I still remember until this day, and one case of sleep paralysis. So the sleep paralysis, when I was like probably like 13 or 14, I was having a nap, and I woke up. But then I couldn't move my body, but I could feel my body lying there. And my grandma was walking out of the kitchen into the living room where I was napping. And I wanted to call her to wake me up, but I couldn't say anything. But I could, for some reason, I could see her walking towards me and sitting down next to me. But all I want to say is like, can you please shake my leg? But I couldn't. And I think I had to like utilize all of my willpower just to move my leg just so that I can wake up the body. But that was a horrible experience. Yeah.
And was she actually there in real life?
Yeah, she was. She was sitting next to me.
She wasn't a demon.
Yeah, she wasn't a demon. No. She was sitting next to me.
Yeah.
But like we are very, very close, but it feels very far away because I couldn't say any words to her, even though inside my head I was talking. But my actual mouth wasn't moving.
Yeah.
The sleep paralysis. I hate sleep paralysis. The nightmare. I think this was when I was 6 or 7 years old, and for some reason I still remember this nightmare distinctively. My house was flooded, and in the nightmare I was on like the 5th floor of the building, but the flood came all the way to the 5th floor, and it wasn't water; it was blood.
Oh my God!
Yeah, the whole building was flooded with blood, and I was having this nightmare. And then there was a giant crocodile swimming in the blood, in the pool of blood. And so I woke up, I woke up in the middle of the nightmare and I was sweating all over, and I was like, nah, I don't want to go back to sleep ever again.
Someone watching this is turning that into a screenplay right now.
Crocodile blood.
Yeah, well, Crocodile Dundee. But yeah, speaking of crocodiles, and then I decided to go to Australia in 10 years later where all the crocodiles live. Getting back to Get Out, so this movie was nominated for an Academy Awards for Best Screenplay. So when you rewatch it, did you notice any other details that you missed during the first viewing?
Nothing that I can put like my finger on, because it's kind of like once you know the mystery, right? It's like it's nice to like notice like what things hint at and stuff like this first shot is literally like the guy getting kidnapped and stuff.
Yes.
I don't think the first time I watched it I realized it was the same dude as the guy that like comes later. I'm like, we met this guy before. And just like even like all the little things like you said with the policeman and stuff like why wouldn't she want, like it's not a big deal, but like even though it could be like considered racist because he's like, why do you need to see the passenger's license and stuff? And even like with the groundskeeper and the housekeeper, like they're doing all this weird stuff. Yeah, like it all just kind of makes sense when you know what's happening. But I don't know, maybe more the party, all the stuff in the party, like them asking all these weird questions, like makes sense the second time. Yeah, and even like the guy that tries to steal his body, the blind man, he's like, oh, I don't care what color you are, I want your eyes and stuff, which is nearly just as bad. That he's just like, this is why he craves to be this dude and stuff.
But then, like, why don't you just go and get surgeries to replace?
Well, obviously not good. I don't know, like if they can do eye replacement surgery or whatever, but like
you are doing brain replacement surgeries. I'm pretty sure brain trumps eyes.
Well, I was going to say, if you're going to these crazy parties already, like,
they're saying stylistic eyes though. He's going to find the right eyes.
Yeah, that's fair. What about you, Chloe? Did you notice any details?
I think the main thing is, you've been let in on the secret the second time. And so you're like, oh, God, that makes so much sense. Oh, God, that's why he freaks out. And, the second watching, you always just feel like a little bit more knowledgeable, which makes me really feel for the editors of the film. Yeah. Because they're like, how do we keep it mysterious? Because I know everything that's going on.
And I think we have to give credits to Jordan Peele on his writing of the dialogues as well. Because like when the characters had all these conversations, it feels awkward. It feels a bit off, right? Especially like the father. Yeah. Like when he was like,
that's what I mean, that dinner, when they're having dinner together, that's like great. Because it does just feel like an awkward conversation with, your boyfriend, where it's just like, like, we know he's black. Don't try to be weird about it. And they're all weird about it. So it's just like, it feels normal from that point. Because that's what I mean. It all feels like normal in that sense, right? Apart from obviously, all the shit happens later. But because that's what I think it does a great job of, like kind of, suspending your disbelief. Because you're like, this feels normal until it doesn't.
Yeah.
And it's just such a outside of the actual dialogue and the actual screenplay, the performances are so amazing. Yeah. They're just so good, and I think they hit that tone really well. Yeah. And I think that's where it is, where you go back and you rewatch and you go, oh, that's what they meant. Because they play it off so well in like, oh, this is just like an awkward interaction that's happening.
So I think the main actor, Daniel Kaluuya, got nominated for the best actor from this movie as well.
It was very good.
Yeah. And then I think I was surprisingly astonished when he did the scene with the hypnosis. The first time when he was talking about his mother and the trauma it came from, like you could feel the pain coming out from him. Yeah, and then he got into the sunken place. So shit, like I just poured my heart out to you, and then you put me in.
And then he just wakes up, and it's just like, oh shit.
Yeah.
He's incredible, and I think the first time I ever saw him perform was in that Black Mirror episode. Have you seen it?
Yeah, one of the earlier ones.
And I remember just watching this and being like, I've never seen this guy before, but he's gonna be huge. And I actually think he needs to be huger.
Yeah.
Because what do you think? He's such a good actor.
Yeah. But it's Hollywood for you.
And we also need to talk about Miss Alison Williams, who plays Rose Armitage. So after this movie, this was actually her first feature film debut. So she was in the TV's world before. After this movie, she produced and starred in Megan, another scary doll,
another scream queen in our making.
Yep. And so when Jordan came to her to pitch her this movie, she jumped at it straight away because she was like, "Oh, I want to show people my whole range." What do you think about her performance? Do you have a favorite segment?
I know, but she sells it very well of being like the caring girlfriend. And then like that switch, like you're saying with the keys, at the end when she's like, yeah, I've got the keys, you know, I can't give them to you, like instantly like switching to like who she really is, right? And then like the other scene when she's eating the cereal, like it really shows who she is because she's already looking for the next target. She like types up who's going to be the next big basketball or whatever, and like looking at dudes, and she's just got her headphones in like in psycho mode. It's like, all right.
And I will say we need more female antagonists.
She was really good in it.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about female characters being villainized in movies?
I love it. Let's have more female villains. I think, and when women are in villain roles, they just have so much more fun with it. I really, really love female villains.
There you go. Do you have another favorite? Do you have like what would come to mind when I ask you, who is your favorite female villain?
See, the only ones I have are like Disney villains.
Right?
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. We need more like actual like
Maleficent.
female. Yeah. But no, we don't need the backstory of like what makes them
like,
evil.
Yeah.
Because even that she's like shown as like the hero kind of, right? She's not really the villain.
Well, if the original Sleeping Beauty,
the
she's
original one. Yeah, the original one.
Well, awesome. And I think we can move on to the latest installment of another franchise. I think it's going to be another franchise. So it's the sequel of the 1988 dark fantasy horror comedy movie Beetlejuice.
I would say more of a comedy.
Yeah.
Like comparative to like these two movies.
But yeah, for some reason it's listed under fantasy horror comedy.
Well, fantasy kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really get the horror so much comparative to like Get Out or even Halloween. But it's just something, just like the setting and the use of like makeup.
Yes.
And like all the effects are really well done.
Yes.
Like it really sells the world, right? From being from like, you know, normal out of nowhere suburb area into this freakish underworld area. It does a great job of that. I think that's what it excels at.
Yeah. So the 1988's classic Beetlejuice got a sequel in 2024. Beetlejuice.
Don't say it three times.
Yeah. 3 times. I'm like, not too far apart. What's the limit, Darren?
Well, no, there's no limit.
The limit does not exist.
So the third one will come out in 100 years or something?
Perhaps. Or in 70 years. So this movie, the original was directed by Tim Burton. And it starred Alec Baldwin. I'm not sure if you guys are far. Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, you went there. I didn't go there. And Winona Ryder and Michael Keaton.
Great cast.
Yeah, I love Michael Keaton. I think we established that. So the original was made on a budget of $15 million. And then it grossed $75 million. And it won the Academy Award for Best Makeup.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So I think I was very curious about this movie because not many movies combine different genres well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I think in the beginning, it has all the tropes of a scary movie, of a horror. A young couple, they had an accident. It's got all those.
Well, even how they died, the dog killed them, right? The dog's sitting on the pike, and they're like, no, the dog's like, whoop.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, they didn't know that they passed away. They came back into the house.
Yeah. That's like a great setup, right? They don't notice it happening. I think it's like such a great selling point until the people just like barge in. They're like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love there's a line I think Alec Baldwin says. He goes, how did we get here? But so many times you drive home and you don't know how you got home.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
I do know what
it's
you mean,
so relatable in that way. I think going back to your point about genre, see, when I think about Halloween movies or horror movies, I've got them segregated in my mind, segmented. So we've got, slasher films, we've got sci-fi films, we've got, like spooky films,
psychological horror,
horror and thrillers,
possession, the bloody exorcism and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So then I think what Tim Burton does so well. I feel like I'm just complimenting everyone on this podcast.
We prefer to watch good movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe you should do one with just bad movies, but like the terrible movies.
We've done 2 episodes on Marvel and DC. It was painful.
It was pretty painful.
Yeah, I think we watched like 6 bad movies in one day.
Oh, I could get behind that. But yeah, with Tim Burton, he does that spooky, gloomy kind of camp adjacent, very, well, not adjacent, actually very camp. He does that genre so well. He almost owns the genre with the comedy and everything's a little bit comedic in what he does.
Yeah.
Like
Very cartoonish in a way as well, right?
Because I was trying to think, it's not really dark.
Yeah.
It's not dark because it's like, you can't say that it's like a dark comedy, because that's what I was trying to figure out, like where would it actually sit? Because it is like horror. But
spooky.
It's spooky, yeah. It's
Halloween spooky.
Yeah.
And I got a bit of a theatrical sense in that as well, because like the way that he does the lighting and the setup, it feels like you're watching a play. You're not watching a movie. You know what I mean? Like there are a lot of like in this movie in particular, there are a lot of scenes where half of the screen is black and then you're just focusing on the characters. And I mean, if you are watching it from the audience chair and you're watching the stage, it's very similar. And, a lot of weird costumes, a lot of crazy actions as well. So, yeah, it's like in a theater, you're watching a play, not a movie.
Yeah, what I really liked about the new Beetlejuice, said it 3 times, whoops. I really thought that it harked back to the original in a nice way, where it still kind of had that janky, like physical effects, campiness to it. When she like sucks the souls out of these people and they turn into a pancake. It's actually hilarious.
Yeah.
And I think Tim Burton uses the like physical sets really well, and it is really quite.
Because that's what he's always great at. Like you think of like the old Batman movies he does and stuff. And even like, does he do Edward Scissorhands, or am I thinking something else?
Yeah, he does.
It's just like he's like the aesthetic. He's always good of like a weird kind of body horror kind of aesthetic, because I think that's what he does really well in his films. Yeah, because that's what I loved. I loved in the old one when they're like, how scary can you be? And they like mess with their faces and stuff, like pulls nose out and stuff. I think that's all like great.
Yeah. So if we follow the storyline of the classic, I think that this storyline is pretty simple in a way, but we don't really have a villains. Like the new family that moves into the house is supposed to be the villain.
It's kind of like they're kind of like,
yeah.
Not like the villain, but like kind of like intruding into the story, and they're kind of like trying to figure out how to get rid of them, right? That's kind of like the idea. And Beetlejuice is kind of like on the side. I can help. I'm just a weirdo. Let me out.
He gives me a lot of he gives me a lot of similar traits to the Joker. Like there are a lot of conversations where he had like darling, but it gives me the sense of like the Joker in the 1990s, the animated series.
Okay.
Like he jumps around a lot. He wears a weird looking suit.
He's got moss on his face.
Yeah.
It's giving me the same as like The Mask. Or
well, Jim Carrey's great at like the physical acting.
Yeah,
like, I think Keaton's great at as well. That's what he really sells, this like creepy, weird dude with all these like body actions and how he like walks up to people. He's like, "Come on, darling, you love me. Come on, stay away from me, please."
What I found was really interesting between the first movie and the second movie, which I watched back to back, was the second movie had so many side characters, and it was great. But it was great to see like Danny DeVito, and it was great to see Willem Dafoe and all of that.
Willem Dafoe's in everything.
Keep him in everything. I love Willem Dafoe.
He's great.
But yeah, I was just watching the first movie first. You could really realize like, oh wow, like people needed less back then.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like it's crazy. But even like the focus on like, even though it's only like focused on like the two families really.
Yeah.
And it's always like having like you want to have those actors and like have them in interesting roles. But I think sometimes it helps to have a bit less, right? Yeah. And use kind of just focus on the story a bit, because that's what there's so many, like we're talking about Alien and all these other movies that are trying to like hint back at the old one and find what made it successful and like play it again, which it's always hard. I think it's a hard balance, right? To like try to bring that stuff in.
So do you think like if like for example, if you are a modern audience and you watch the old Beetlejuice, do you think that today's audience will appreciate this movie as much?
The first or the second?
The first one.
I think modern audiences will find it a little bit janky in its effects and will find it funnier rather than I think I remember when I watched it first, like back in the day, it was a little bit gory and terrifying, but I think now it's just kind of funny.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I think like the way they've updated it for a modern audience with the second film is actually quite good. And I was wondering to myself though, the first one has a lot of unaliving yourself jokes.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Like a lot.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I don't know if that's gonna
Fly today.
remain.
Yeah, it's probably not a
Yeah.
storyline they want to keep going. But it kind of like, I think it plays into like Winona Ryder's character, right? Of like feeling a bit lost and like, oh, the people I get along with are dead.
Yeah.
It's just like, it makes like, I think it does track in the story, but I do understand like it is a bit more sensitive on that topic. But I do think if it's a part of the story and used well, it doesn't have to be just like the shock value of like, oh, I'm going to off myself or whatever, right? But I do think it is an interesting thing to look at, kind of like discussing like, hey, what's too far in a film? But especially with something like Beetlejuice, you don't think it's like going to go to that length, right?
Yeah. And Tim Burton said something like, Beetlejuice is one of those characters who will not have any progression. He will not have any character arc.
Well,
He will stay the same.
Yeah, that's who he is, right?
Yeah,
he's a creepy dude.
And he's been he's been dead for how
Did
many?
he say in the first one it was like a couple of centuries?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he has a job, really.
That's what I found
exorcist.
when they're talking to like the lady that's in charge of them, and he's like, oh, he used to work for me. I'm like, you let him work for you? Was he like this the whole time?
And to be on that point as well, I love the concepts of the underworld in the Beetlejuice universe, when it's just like another office.
Yeah, because at the end when Beetlejuice is there and he's got like the ticket, and then the guy next to him is just like, oh, I've got like 4 hours. He's like, look at me, I'm next.
I think that was really great in the first movie though, when one of the ghost characters said to Winona Ryder's character, sorry, I'm really great with names.
I'm terrible.
That she was saying like, oh, I want to be dead like you guys, and they're like, it's not easier.
Because that's what I like. They like really care for her. It's like, no, this is not something we want. Because there's so many. They're like, Beetlejuice can help us, and she's like, oh, I don't want to mess with her. Like she's, she's a nice person. Yeah. Like we know the family's a bit bloody rough and corporate. I guess they're kind of like the corporate entity because they come in and try to buy everything up and sell to use it for money and stuff, which is like interesting. Yeah, because it's kind of, I don't know how deep you want to go into it, but the idea of like someone coming in and claiming your land and then selling it off for like the highest bidder because it's quirky, right? Because when they haunt them the first time at the dinner, it's like, oh, this is great. When they all start singing, that's amazing. I love the scene when they all get up.
That dinner scene is so good.
Fantastic. They're all dancing, and then I love after that they're like, oh, this is cool. Can we sell this?
Yeah, they were like, wait, they're gonna run out screaming, and they were like, can you invite them down?
Yeah. And they're like,
no legs. Look at the picture. There's no legs. Oh, no, they don't want to come down. Why? Why don't want to come down?
Can I just say, though, speaking of the family, the alive family in the first film, Catherine O'Hara, who's both in the first film and the second film, just a shout out to her because she is incredible. And I don't know, are you guys fans of Schitt's Creek?
Oh, yeah.
I have heard of it, but I've never watched it.
She is fantastic in Schitt's Creek. But when I rewatched the first Beetlejuice, I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, I could see where she gets her inspiration from. Yeah. And it's almost like her character in Beetlejuice walked so that Moira Rose could run.
She's just like a grumpy... Because she's a stepmom, right?
Yeah, she's a stepmother, but she's very artistic.
And flamboyant.
Is that the dinner again, right? Where they're like... What'd she say? Oh, your art's like she's got a manager then. She's like, oh, his art's not that good, but we can probably sell this like ghost thing. And he's like, what? He's like, oh.
And she's like, when they first moved in, she was like, oh, this is the sculpture. It's very good. And the guy was just like, it's not expensive, but I made it. And the guy was just like, yeah. Oh, I love that. I was like, well, this is so weird. Like it's not how normal people would act, especially a removalist. When you move things for people, you wouldn't throw things like that. But
it's a good comedy beat. It's a good comedy beat.
No, it's good.
There's also, I'm a big Schitt's Creek fan.
Yeah.
But there is a little Easter egg for Schitt's Creek fans out there of Moira Rose, who is an actress in Schitt's Creek, and she stars in this horror franchise called The Crows Have Eyes.
Oh, no.
And there's actually a reference to it in Beetlejuice, which I loved.
Yeah, that's great. Do you think that they are all part of a big universe? It's going to be another Marvel universe.
I don't think any universe could fit both of those two characters.
I think there was one point where Tom Cruise was in the Mummy remake.
Yeah.
And they wanted to create like this monsterverse, right?
And the Mummy movie was terrible.
It's terrible, so they
and I was like,
stop.
Great start to start it. It's terrible.
Yeah.
The first one or the one with Tom Hanks?
The one with Tom,
sorry,
Tom
Tom
Hanks.
Cruise. Tom Cruise. Oh my god,
Tom Hanks. No,
Tom
that'd be
Hanks.
funny. Tom Hanks. Fighting off the Mummy.
Well, Tom
Or
Hanks
the
was
Mummy.
in- yeah.
Tom Hanks as the Mummy.
Come on, just give me a go. I'm trying it.
Oh my god. Yeah. So, do you think that they will make another sequel to the Beetlejuice? There might be 3.
Well,
I think that after the first movie, the studio they wanted to make a sequel straight away.
Okay.
But I think there was a lot of different scheduling
problems,
so they couldn't make it happen.
Do we need one?
Do you want one?
No, that's I guess it's the money, right? If it does well, it probably will, right? And like I know Michael Keaton will keep doing them because he's literally come out and said, "I don't care if someone gives me money, I'll probably do it," which I don't blame him for.
Yeah. I think after Birdman, he given up on the idea of like artistic achievement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It did feel a little bit like Tim Burton was doing a flyover of, he was almost flexing his career throughout the new film.
That's fair.
Because you've got
He's had a very long career. So
you've got the claymation in
he's
there.
always been great at that stuff.
Yeah, and then you've got just like little harkbacks to all of his kind of other works throughout the
Do
film.
you think this might be like a send-off for him even?
Ooh.
No, I think Tim Burton's going to keep
He'll
doing
be
Tim
back
Burton
next
stuff.
year. Him and Johnny Depp will be back together.
Johnny Depp, I think he played a few different characters for Tim Burton. I think he voiced the groom in the
Is it Sweeney Todd? Did they do
Sweeney
that?
Todd,
Yeah.
yes.
Edward
Yeah.
Scissorhands.
Yep. And the Corpse Bride as well. Like he voiced
Yeah, he was
the
voice in
groom.
that.
Yeah.
I think Tim Burton finds actors he really loves and just loves just
And
using
marries
them.
them. What's her name?
Helena Carter Bonham.
Yeah.
Bonham Carter,
Yeah, Bonham Carter, yeah.
Yeah.
Because she's nearly in just as many movies with him, like with Johnny Depp as well, right? Like,
I'm surprised Tim Burton didn't direct the Harry Potter franchise.
That would be too spooky.
Imagine how interesting that would be.
Oh, yeah.
Probably more interesting than they are now.
So I think after we discuss all these movies, I want to bring us back to the idea of the classics versus the contemporary horror movies. What are some of the distinctive differences that you notice?
How classic are we talking? Are we talking?
So like, let's just use like
What are the
Halloween,
classics?
yeah, like Halloween, Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
But what if we go even way back to
Oh,
Alfred
way
Hitchcock?
Alfred
I
Hitchcock,
still
yeah.
haven't watched. I need to watch some of those movies.
Boo.
But like,
Is it Psycho? Is that the one I
Psycho,
think?
It's also Psycho,
Birds,
yeah.
A lot of different ones where it's very much about the tension and watching and yeah.
Yeah. So like, what are some of the differences you guys notice in today's movie comparing to the classics? I remember one of the quotes that Alfred Hitchcock did during all the interview. He said, "There's scare, there's scary, there's terror, and there's horror." And I think the way that he did horror is like, it's like a different level because the horror and the terror comes from your mind. It's not from things that you see on the screen. And I think it's very similar to one of the concepts that we discussed before, the engagement with the audience, right? If you give them too much information, if you tell them how to think, what to see,
They're not going to be scared of it.
Exactly right. So yeah, so I think that's one of the big differences that I noticed, because it seems like in today's horror movies, they spoon feed you a lot of information. Oh, here's where the evil spirit is from. This is why they're doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, I don't need to know that. You know?
That doesn't make it more scary, does
Exactly. It makes them less scary, in fact.
Yeah, they need to come from out of nowhere. Hey, I think when you look like way back, it was more about the horror film was about the unknown.
Yeah.
Horror
Well, I
in
think
general.
it's still scary, the unknown, but it's how it's sold, right?
Yeah, and then you get to the slasher, which is like a figure, a person, a ghost or whatever, and then you move to like maybe the 90s, early 2000s. It's like the occult, things you
Or
can't
even
explain
like-
with science.
Yeah.
The possessing, like paranormal. When's paranormal? Was that like 08? Or was it
Yeah,
06? I
around.
remember I was still in high school when it came out.
Yeah.
But that was another big jumping point for like another part of horror that whether or not
Like the shaky cam, like the
Yeah.
how cam style as well.
Well, yeah, Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
I still haven't watched that. I need to-
Cloverfield. Watch
This is
Cloverfield.
just
You-
all scaredy cats talking about it.
Well, that's what I mean. There's a lot of, because I did watch Cloverfield and then not not the latest one, but the one in between where they're stuck in a bunker, because that one's really nice.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's what I mean. They're like horror movies that I'll probably never watch because I was too scared.
But Cloverfield is amazing though. Like, I was pleasantly surprised with Cloverfield. I'm just like you. I hate horror movies, but then I got tricked into watching that because it doesn't seem like a horror movie until the half of the movie. Yeah.
But now I feel like it's a bit of a pick and mix. Don't you think? Like there are monster films, there are psychological.
I think the movie industry is so broad now, right?
Yeah.
It's not easy, but it's easier to get it out there, right? With streaming and stuff. It doesn't have to go to like the theater and then go out like that. It can just like kind of jump steps. So it's like it doesn't have to hit all the other notes that it usually has to hit to be like a successful horror. Because that's why I think we get a lot of psychological horror now, because I think that works better from a sense of like not understanding what's happening compared to like, you know, a big scary monster or a big scary ghost. Like when it's all, you know, 20 exorcism, here's another haunting. It's like, all right, you know, here's paranormal 20. They're still getting haunted. It's like, okay, like it's not as spooky as the first time, right? And I think that's what's hard with horror, trying to find something original to go with. If there was a horror I liked, it's kind of like the, you know, sci-fi, like I said, kind of Ari Giga with Aliens. Like, it's lost a bit of its luster a little bit because everyone knows how it works, right? They know how it kind of works. But in those first few movies, you're still like, I'm trying to understand them. But that's what's always hard. Like Hollywood doesn't want to go for the hard movie. They're like, oh, we know this is going to make money. Let's go. Let's make Beetlejuice number 3. Let's go.
If they do, can they just please fix Winona Ryder's wig? Because it was so distracting. I was like, how much budget did this film have?
Give her a break. Like, she's had a rough time. Give her a break. I was like, I felt bad for her. She had a rough time in Hollywood. Can just give her a break now?
Give her a good wig, please.
And Keanu Reeves to come back for Beetlejuice 3.
Beetlejuice 3 is
well, technically they are married. Like, did you know that? Like in the movie Sunrise and Sunset, they had a scene where they perform a wedding.
Oh, was that official, Darren?
apparently the priest issued a paper.
Oh my god!
No, you got to fact check that.
Yeah.
Not at all. It is true.
And I want to ask you guys what you guys think about you were talking about getting new ideas for horror genre, right? But it seems like Hollywood is struggling to find those new ideas.
Well, even without horror, right?
Yeah.
Just in general. But there are still like even Longlegs. Like I wasn't expecting that to be kind of so amazing. But that's what I mean. You kind of never know till it gets out there, right? That's why, because that's like, you know, like Godzilla or what else has been what else has been out that's like
King
Kong, like just all those big movies that like. And maybe not like the greatest movies, but people are just like, oh, yeah, I want to see two things smash each other for a while. And even with horror, like it's harder still because like where do you find that ground? Like it's always still going to be like, was it Russell Crowe who was in like 2 Exorcist movie within the same year or something? Like, come on now. Like, it like even the like spooky house idea, like that's even been done to hell. Like, but that's the thing. Until someone has like a new idea for it, I think it's always hard to judge. Like,
yeah, and I think it's also creative space, right? So Jordan Peele already had kind of a flourishing comedy career before he was able to, you know,
he had a bit of chops behind, so
put his
some range,
creative weight behind a horror film, and then John Krasinski again, comedy.
And he has some like money behind him, so it's like easier to sell. Right?
Yeah, so I guess it's more of a reflection on Hollywood and what they. Willing to creatively risk on these days.
Is Kevin Hart going to release the next greatest horror movie?
Oh no!
Oh god, it'll include The Rock in it.
That's the horror. The Rock is chasing you around.
But there
the forest. He's coming. The Rock.
But there are a few other horrors coming out, like the Speak No Evil one with James McAvoy.
I'm like on the fence on it, but I do like James McAvoy. He's amazing. So I might.
Split. He was so good.
Yeah, he was amazing in that.
Yeah.
I've seen some ads for it. It's like, oh, he's so sexy, but it's like what is this? What are they trying to sell this as? I'm like, is this a horror movie? I'm like, I guess I'm not watching it for the horror.
Another one is coming out as well. I kind of forgot. So it's the Speak No Evil one. But like, so it seems like Hollywood is trying to focus on the psychological horror. Because I think now it's like people are used to all the monsters, all the, you know, like the big movies, the haunting and things like
possession.
that. So I think now we get to the most horrible thing of all, human.
Yourself.
Yeah. Well, that's like, I'm trying to even think of stuff like that, like a Manhunt, right? But that's even hard to sell as a horror, right? Because what's the one where the blind man, they get like trapped in his house?
Oh, Don't Speak.
Yeah, and he's like, they're like trying to rob him or something, and then they get stuck in the house and he like hunts them down or something. Oh, Saw. We didn't even think about Saw. That's more like
there's another franchise. Yeah.
What is it on now? It's Saw 10?
230. He's back from the dead.
Becomes a zombie.
Yeah, he's a zombie setting traps.
To be fair, the first few Saw films
they are great.
were incredible in terms of that low budget again.
Yeah.
It makes it look so realistic. I think they still hold up, but you have
I
to
do
be a
think
fan of
they
the
do
gore.
have that charm, right?
Yeah.
And like we said, like after you do it so many times, it loses its charm, right? But they are great, those early Saw movies. Because even then, like, I didn't watch those till recently because I'm too scared. I'm like, and even watching them, they're not like that scary. It is about like just being stuck in that situation. Like, they're great. That first one's amazing, really, when you look back at it.
The first one's the best one.
Yeah, like them just trapped in that room and they're like trying to figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just good horror movies would be great right there.
So where do you think this genre will go?
I think
forward.
it will stay kind of the same unless there's a movie like Get Out or something that like sets a standard. Because even like I think Longlegs is very good, but I don't think it does anything like amazing that I think will affect like how Hollywood views horror movies. I think they're going to stay the same. I think we're probably looking for the next great horror movie that's going to like maybe set standards. Yeah, kind of like the Paranormals. Like, oh shit, now we got to all do ghost movies now. And then it's just like,
I actually feel like sci-fi could have a resurgence.
It could. It has been like. This Alien movie's done well, and then even they redid the Predator movie, and that had some success.
Oh no!
So we're going to get all the re-Alien movies again.
Yeah.
And I think a part of horror films is kind of a revenge factor or escape factor, or saying like what we were saying with Get Out, how it was framing like a social issue around racism in America. If I was to look at the big issues of today, I feel like there's definitely space for like Earth-based monster seeking revenge
All the pollution we've put into it or something.
There's definitely something in
isn't
that.
The idea of Godzilla, like he comes from like the nuclear waste.
Oh.
And that's why Japan, like they made Godzilla as this big scary monster coming from nuclear waste. That's kind of, I know that's like far from where they are now, but like that's kind of like the idea of him. But that's like not a bad idea. Like I was thinking like there's so many political issues. Like you could go from nearly anything. Like even war, like we have so many. I could imagine a good war, like horror movie or something.
Yeah.
Like some being hunted as you're in the middle of a war or something. How scary would that be?
And I think there is another chance that maybe the horror genre might die out, but it just became part of the.
I don't think it ever will. Because like you said, they can be just low budget films and then they find success and they make money. So I don't think it'll ever die out. Yeah. Because I think it has, like, compared to like a big Hollywood movie where they're putting like $200-300 million, they'll give someone like $5 million. Like, go have fun, good luck. It's not as big of a loss.
Yeah. I also think it's the movie equivalent of getting on a roller coaster.
Yeah, definitely.
Like people do it for the thrill, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a good movie.
Yeah,
that's why there's
even
so
if it
many
is
crap
bad,
ones.
Even if it is bad, it can still like find some success.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's why I was surprised with Megan, because I didn't think it was that good of a film. Or even Smile. That found a lot of success. I thought it was fine. And it's got a sequel as well. I was like, all right.
Yeah. It's what you consider critical success versus like money success.
Yeah. Money's always on top.
Money's always the first one. Yeah.
Why do you think that it's going to
because it seems like
down?
now they always try to include that element of horror into different genres, like into the thriller, into actions. I always put some sort of horror in, but I think it seems like the money that they are getting from all these horror movies is not enough. It's not attractive enough for the studios to be like, yeah, we want to invest into this franchise. And I think in terms of the audience as well, like the first time you watch a horror, it scares you, it haunts you, right? But then when you watch it for like the 10th time, do you really want to?
Probably wouldn't watch it 10 times.
Yeah, no one's really out there rewatching horror films.
No, but I mean like the sequels, like all the sequels, all the additions.
Well, that's why I kind of like Jordan Peele, because he always goes on to something new, right? He hasn't made like Get Out 5, right? There was Nope. What was the one before it? Like Us or With Us? The one where they're all like underground. I can't remember. But he always makes something new, right? Where Hollywood's happy to like churn out things that are going to find money. But even the thing with genre, like I feel like it's hard to like put a thing in a genre, right? A movie can cover like a lot of space, but that's what I mean. But like when it comes to October and it's horror season, so it's like, here's a horror movie.
Yeah.
And when we were talking about another like small trilogy before, like Maxine.
Yeah,
It was like a slasher horror.
That didn't have a big budget at all.
$1 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
it's such a little investment.
Mia Goth is the
Yeah,
actress
Mia
that
Goth,
stars in
so
one of them.
you got X, you got Maxine, and you got the first one is like Swan or something. I kind of
Pearl
forgot.
or something?
Pearl,
Yeah,
Pearl.
yeah.
But it's like that because we were talking about like how demanding it is for the studios to keep up with the audience, because now they have access to all the streaming platforms. So they were like, yeah, I want the next seasons tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then when you push that, then it reduces the quality, and you don't have the budget
plays
in the
into
first
it
place.
a little bit, but you hope not. But that's what I mean. Like, they're always looking for the next big thing as well, right? And that's why they kind of like shit out all these stuff. But definitely for like big movies, you hope there's some kind of polish on them and some enjoyment. But I feel like it's always going to be kind of like an issue. It's never going to be like a problem that's fixed. But you just hope that like the value outweighs like just the quantity, right?
Yeah. And that's why you got to keep indie studios alive and indie
That's the
producers
thing. Like,
alive.
you got to try to hit some of those like lesser known films and give it some like love. So, because that's what I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, movies are terrible. I'm like, what have you been watching?
Yeah.
You just watch Marvel movies, right? You haven't even tried to watch any other movies, have you?
Yeah.
So it's like, come on. That's what I mean. You got to. It's hard because people don't want to put in that work sometimes, but I think it's worth it when it's a good film, right?
Yeah. And I'm very excited if the horror movies from different countries get into the mainstream.
Yeah.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
the Vietnamese community, we love Thai horror movies.
Yes.
That's probably even a good look, like some international horror, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like some other scary, there's shit tons of other like scary cultural stuff.
Yeah, I think if you look at especially East Asia, or I'm talking about East Asia because I know the most about that. But there's like definitely, even in the older generations, there's more of a focus on ghost stories, and there's laws that have lasted for centuries and what have you. And I think Filipinos, their scary stories are
They're scary.
no, the Filipinos have like hectic ghosts and scary stories. Creepypasta. And
Creepypasta. I was going to say, there've been movies as well, bloody creepypasta.
but then, it's Thai films. I don't know what it is about Thai films, but they are so terrifying.
And don't let me start it with Japanese horror.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got some freaky ass. What is it? Why have I forgotten his name? Junji Ito? Is that his name? Yeah. Like a lot of his shit is insanely scary. I'm surprised they haven't tried to make that a film, but
He recently did a collab with Sanrio, so he's got like a Hello Kitty collab.
that's classic. Well, that
Just
sounds
like
very Japanese,
Japan.
right? Very Japanese.
Yeah, now, I think we can wrap up this episode here.
Yeah,
I think
good
that we've spoken
Hello
about
Kitty,
the horror
Hello-
movies a lot.
Hello Kitty is a good spot.
I think
Next
so.
time, Hello Kitty movies.
Oh God, don't give them any ideas.
We have reached the end of the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation, and comment below. Let us know what you feel about these horror movies or about horror movies in general. Click on the subscribe button, click on the bell for the latest episodes. Until next time, thank you, Chloe, so much for joining us
Thanks for
in
coming.
the
Oh my
studio.
gosh, thanks so much
I'm
for having
Darren,
me.
And I'm Tim.
and this has been Movie Beings.